Hello everyone, my name is Unrested, and this will be a video on monster parents. It is concerning my Dark Side of Japan series, which is a full series covering all sorts of topics about the darker aspects of Japan and life in Japan. Please realize I do not hate nor dislike Japan in the least. I love this country. I think it's a great country. The average Japanese person is very polite and has great manners. I want to reiterate that Japan is awesome, but just like my country with its very dark side with guns and violence, Japan has its dark side too, and today we are covering monster parents in Japan. Now, if you're wondering how to say that in Japanese, it's literally just the same, monster parents, so don't get too concerned with the Japanese aspect of that word. I want to talk from this and by first giving my own credentials. How the hell do I know anything about monster parents or even being a parent in Japan? Well, first of all, let me tell you, I am a father of two half-Japanese kids. I have lived in Japan 9 years now. I have worked at Kiowa. I have worked at high schools, junior high schools, elementary schools, kindergartens, international kindergartens. I have worked as an ALT, I have worked as an assistant Japanese teacher, I have worked as an assistant English teacher, I have also worked as an assistant kindergarten teacher, also known as a hobo, not the bum, but a person who assists another Yoichien no sensei, which is a kindergarten teacher. So I have a background in education. I am currently an illustrator in Japan. That is my full-time job. I still work part-time teaching private lessons and a little bit of Yoichien no sensei, kindergarten job on the side. So that is my background. I do have a background in both parenting, because I have two kids, and in education, because I have taught at almost every darn level possible in Japan. Aside from college, I've never been a college-educated teacher. So you can count me out of that one. That's the only thing, but I don't think you're dealing too much with parents controlling their kids as much in college. Let's hope not. Let's hope you can stand on your own 2 feet by the time you get to college. That being said, let's jump right into it. What exactly defines a monster parent? Well, a monster parent, by Japan's definition, is one that is concerned with things that are either not supposed to be controlled by the school, things that are supposed to be controlled by the parent but are put off on the school, or is overly aggressive with what they either expect the school to teach their kid or how they expect a school or teacher to take care of their kid. Oftentimes, they shunt their own responsibilities and pass them off as responsibilities of the school. They also expect limitless and unreasonable levels of skill to be taught to their children, for their children to be far above and beyond their own ability due to what the teachers teach. And if they do not meet this expected ability, it is considered the teacher's fault, completely 100%. There is a variant of the monster parent known as the helicopter parent, which means helicopter parent, one that constantly hovers around, near, close, or in the school, either watching the teacher and or parent watching the child, constantly, non-stop. This is such a strong matter, in fact, in South Korea, that some schools have made rooms that have cameras connected to the classroom and then TVs filling those rooms so that parents can literally sit down in the building and watch their child 24 hours a day in school. Incredible. Luckily, as far as I know, Japan does not have anything like that, and I really hope they never do. That is insanity. Now, first off, let me get to the point that makes me usually the angriest about monster parents, especially from the aspect of an international and or English teacher, because obviously that is my specialty. That's all I've ever done. I've never taught anything else other than English. I guess I have had an art gig here or there where I've taught some art. But for the most part, let's just stick to English because that's my specialty. Many a times, these monster parents are most represented by housewives. Now, I have nothing against housewives. If you want to be a housewife, if your goal is to be a housewife, if you enjoy being a housewife, there's nothing wrong with that career, and I do consider it a career because it is a very damn busy job. There's nothing wrong with it. I have nothing against that. What I do have something against is the housewife who has never worked any other job, who has never actually worked a part-time or full-time job, one that does not speak any English at all, has never studied English, has never taken an Kiowa or English class, then comes to the school and tells the teacher, who is an English teacher and has been working in English for quite some time, or at some points, like myself, has a minor in education, meaning that I went to college to learn how to teach, and tells them not only how they should teach, but what they should be teaching. So think about it from this perspective. A person who has never worked my job is telling me how to do my job. A person who has never worked a job, any other job than the job that they currently do as a housewife, is telling me how to do my job. And a person who does not speak the language that I teach at my job is telling me how to teach my own native tongue in a way that she thinks is best. Seem a little bit odd to you? Can you see where I'm coming from here? This is very common though. There are many parents who will constantly berate the school with how they are teaching their English, how their child is not learning it fast enough. At the same time, these same parents who we give homework to or suggest talking via immersion teaching at home refuse to speak English at home to their child. They think that's silly, they think that's a dumb idea. Their mother tongue is, of course, Japanese in Japan. They don't see why they would try to speak English, or they do not know any English at all, therefore cannot reinforce it, and do not even know the English that their own child speaks, even if it is very, very elementary level. I'm talking almost baby words English. They can barely understand it. And they cannot reinforce it. And the child is not at school for 12 hours a day. The child is at school at most, usually, at most, kids go to school 9 to 2:30 for an English school, an international school. After that, it's usually playtime. It's usually hang out with your friends time, maybe read a few books, do a few fun activities, but not intensive studies. Then they go back home to a fully Japanese immersed environment. Of course, they can only learn as much as we can teach them in those few short hours. And if that is not enough and you feel as though they need more, you either, number one, take them to a juku or an eikaiwa, which is a cram school or an English conversation school, after their normal schooling, or you speak English at home to them, or you learn English yourself and try to communicate with them in English in order to reinforce their English at home. You do not blame the teacher or tell the teacher your own specific theory that you have on how to teach English. You cannot tell somebody how to teach a language you do not speak. You cannot tell someone how to do a job you have never worked. And that's why you are considered a monster parent when you do that. You cannot be aggressive with ideas you merely theorize on. Now, that's just the beginning. We are just literally touching the tip of the iceberg here. It goes far deeper. Injuries at school and not at school. We have had many a time where there was a student who would get a very slight scratch or a very slight bump due to no fault of any other teacher and or student. Literally a kid running, as they do outside during playground time, trips over a tree root and smacks their head on the ground. Unfortunate, yes. Excusable, yes, of course, it can happen. Is it able to be stopped? No, not unless we wrap the kids in bubble wrap or something like that. Kids need to play, kids need to run, kids need to get hurt because they learn that that's how life is. We are not invincible, we are not made of solid steel, and therefore kids will get injured if they have fun and play, and this is literally part of growing up. Parents who then throw a huge fit over this, that is the problem. Who are people that blow things completely out of proportion. They explode over how much they've had to take the kid to the hospital suddenly. It's an emergency. Their head is swelling. They have a brain hemorrhage. And I have literally had parents tell me stuff like this. And of course, we then of course want to contact the clinic or the doctor that they went to and ask how we should treat such a serious matter or how this could have possibly happened. And when you call, you find the doctor laughing and thinking, Oh, that mom? Yeah, she's in hysterics. That kid literally has a minor scrape. Don't worry about it. That mom is crazy. Like, we've literally had doctors in Japan tell us that the mom that came in is just hysterically insane. Their kid literally one time reported that they found a huge scratch on their child's leg that we had not noticed at school. It was below a sock that had been pulled up, and there was a large scratch, and the mother went ballistic, asking how we could have gone all day without noticing this giant scratch on her child's leg. She took them to the hospital as though it was an emergency, had this massive bandage put around it, took pictures of it, showed it to the principal of the school. So of course we called. We said, when could this have happened? How could this, not have been investigated? We launched a full investigation. But turns out, after talking to the doctor, the kid, from having his socks pulled up, had been sweating through the day. Of course, got itchy legs from his sweat between the socks and the skin, scratched his own leg with his own fingernails, and had some light scratches on his skin. Later, when he came back to the school, we were able to remove the bandages and take a picture for our own documents. It was literally like a little red streak across his skin. And the doctor laughed it off, was just like, yeah, that mom was completely in hysterics. She explained this as an injury. I tried to explain to her that definitely her own child did this, and that there's no way anyone could have known at any time of the day of when he scratched his own leg with his own hand like a normal human being does when they have an itch. And this is the kind of stuff we deal with. We also deal with parents who now expect things that used to be taught at home, for example, potty training and using chopsticks, to be taught by us at schools. Now, for some of you, you might say, well, Scott, I think you should be teaching kids how to eat their food properly. I mean, that seems like a pretty decent thing to teach, and I do. I teach kids how to eat properly with a spoon and a fork and a knife. I do not teach kids how to eat with a chopstick because I teach at international schools. If you send your kid to an international school with gaijin as the teachers, you cannot expect that they were raised in the way in which their parents taught them to eat with chopsticks. If you are not taught by your own parents how to eat with chopsticks, you do not have any Rolodex of memories that you can pull from to then teach kids of the future how to eat with chopsticks. Yes, I taught myself how to eat with chopsticks just fine. It does not apply the same way to a small child. Child chopsticks are actually different. They have special rings and stuff like that for the child to hold. Yes, I can put the kid's hand in there and tell them how to do it. But number one, usually they don't understand enough English for me to explain things fully. And number two, if I'm speaking Japanese to your kid, then why are you sending them to international school? And number three, if you want your kid to learn how to use chopsticks, don't send them to an international school with gaijin teachers who never learned as a kid to use chopsticks. Potty training as well. We have parents who suddenly decide that they want their kid to be potty trained after doing zero work themselves. And they'll do this by just suddenly one day sending them to school with nothing but underwear on, changing from a diaper to underwear, and not telling the teachers when suddenly that kid pisses or shits themselves and their pants is full of a soiled or pissy mess. We then question the parent, why would you do that and not tell us? Because number one, that is a hazard both for the other kids who may get fecal matter on them, and also for the school in general as a hygiene hazard, and not tell the teachers that you have changed from a diaper to underwear. And their response usually is just, oh, well, we wanted you to potty train them. I'm not sure if they expect it to happen in a day or 2 days or even in a week, but that's not how potty training works. I have raised two small children myself. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I have trained both of them to go to the bathroom. It did not happen in 1 day or 1 week. If your child does learn how to go to the bathroom in 1 day, congratulations, you have given birth to an insane genius. Congrats. That being said, there is so much more to go into and so much more to elaborate on with the whole monster parent situation. One of the biggest problems that I see is recently in Japan in the past few years. It's about when I got here in 2007, so give or take 7 to 6 years ago, there was a book released, and I'm not going to go into the full Japanese title of it, but to give you a synopsis of what this book was about, it was pretty much called Never Say No to Your Children. Don't say no to your children, because if you say no to your children while they touch stuff and explore stuff, you are stopping them from fully exploring the world as a whole. If they want to go into a toy store and pick everything off the shelves, if they want to go into a clothing store and unfold every single piece of clothing, don't say no. Let them do that. Let them explore. Let them feel the different tangible, tactile, and different aspects of everything they touch and every object, so that they can learn not just through sight and sound, but touching as well. Let them do whatever they want. Don't stop their exploration. Well, this is a pretty good idea. I think there are some aspects of this that will definitely help a child mature and learn fully about the world. Always saying no and always yelling at a child can fully restrict a lot of its different synapses and branching paths into growing education. That being said, there is a time and a place. There is a time and a place. Those times and places are mostly out in public. If you bring your child to a movie or a restaurant or a store where people are working very hard to keep things neat and clean, you do not let your child rip everything off the shelves. That is the time that you start saying no. Because when that child grows up, they cannot continue that sort of behavior. There is a difference between letting a child explore and letting a child run in utter chaos through a place and disturb other people. Your child has every right to not hear the word no, but that right stops the second it starts to infringe on other people's liberties and rights to happiness. You infringe upon those rights when you make their experience at a movie theater or a restaurant not necessarily a good one. I too have two children, two very small children. I sympathize with you. It is a lot of work. For example, if I take them out to eat, or I try to take them to a movie, I cannot thoroughly enjoy that food or movie because I must watch my children. I must make sure I'm doing things to stop them from crying out loudly, keeping them entertained and or fed, keeping a snack with them if they are hungry, keeping them entertained with some small toy or playing with them myself. I have to stop them from running loose in a store and ripping things down because they do not know that by themselves that is wrong. I need to keep a hand on them at all time or keep them inside of a baby stroller because they do not understand running out in front of a car will not stop that car. That car will hit them. I do not let them run wild through a parking lot because cars can't see a small child. There are blind spots. It is your responsibility to keep that child both safe and tame at all times in public. They have every right to not hear no until that right infringes on the rights, happiness, and liberties of others. If you are spoiling the time for other people in a place because of the way your children are acting, then you are doing it wrong. And please don't tell me I'm a child hater because I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. They are very hard, but they are not 2 and they are not 4 forever. They're that for a very short time and then they mature. Around 10, a child almost completely takes care of themselves. They can do almost everything for themselves. They can even make small meals for themselves if you have raised them properly. You do not have to stick with this for an eternity. But you do need to stick with it if you wanted to be a parent. When you made that commitment, their life became your life. If you didn't want to make that commitment, then why did you have a child? If you're questioning that, well, too bad, too late. Take responsibility. You cannot blame the world for the way your child acts. Now, moving on to when that child grows up, if you continually to raise a child in a world where you never say no, if you continue to raise a child in a world where you never discipline them, you will bring that child up thinking that they can do no wrong. When that child then goes to school, graduates school, ends college, and ends up in a corporate job, the very first time they are yelled at or scolded for doing something wrong, incorrectly, or bad at that job, they will have a complete and utter breakdown. They have never been yelled at or scolded so greatly in their life because you have never been strict with them. Many a times a child like this, when grown into the adult stage, will quit immediately and become what's called hikikomori, to pull in, to withdraw from society. a hermit, someone who stays inside the house all day, and you have created this adult, this hikikomori adult. You have created this shut-in. And the reason that they are a shut-in is because they are scared of the world. They never knew the world would yell at them for doing wrong. They never knew the world would yell at them if they did something bad. They never knew they would be scolded if they didn't do exactly as they were told. They never knew that because you never did that. You raised them all on a policy of never say no. And that is a horrible policy. Now, I'm not the perfect parent. I'm not the perfect teacher. And I'm not the perfect raiser of children. And I don't pretend to be. And I'm not doing everything perfectly right. But I am doing my best. And I am doing my best to take responsibility. And I do realize it is my responsibility to make sure I take full control of my kids and tell them when they are doing something right or wrong. At the end of the day, no matter how many teachers, jukus, ekaiwas, or anything else I send them to, the way my children turn out is my responsibility. It is no teacher's responsibility. It is no other babysitter's responsibility. It is mine, and it is yours too. And if you are a monster parent, you are not taking responsibility. That being said, I think it's a huge issue in Japan that needs to be addressed. I think it's a huge issue that needs to be addressed by parents everywhere around the world. I think it's something that will help the children of the future both get and keep jobs. I think it will give kids of the future a more realistic view of the world if parents everywhere realize you take full responsibility for your child, and being a monster parent is not taking responsibility. That said, I hope you enjoy everything you saw here today. Of course, you may have quarrels and questions and comments to make about everything I've said here, and I welcome them. I totally understand if you do not agree 100% with everything I've said here today, and I want to hear your views. Comment below. If you like what you saw here today, please like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Unrested, and this was The Dark Side of Japan.